They thought they could snatch my ammo safe like it was a lawn ornament. But what they didn't know, I'm licensed by Homeland Security. And when they came for it, everything exploded into chaos. It began with a knock, sharp, deliberate, and chillingly precise, like someone trying to hammer their authority straight into the bones of my front porch. The sound didn't echo like a neighborly tap. It cracked through the morning silence like a gavel slamming down in a courtroom. I froze mid-step, coffee halfway to my lips. Something about that knock carried weight, the kind of weight that promises confrontation. My mind immediately ran through the possibilities. A delivery? No, too firm. A cop? Maybe. But cops don't usually stand perfectly still after knocking, like predators waiting for movement. I swung the door open, and there they were. 3 members of the HOA board. They stood in a perfect, judgmental triangle on my porch as if they had rehearsed this little invasion in front of a mirror. Their expressions were carved from cold stone, arms crossed, lips pressed thin as razor blades. The morning sunlight cut across their faces like interrogation lamps, casting long shadows that clawed at my welcome mat. At the front stood their leader, Mrs. Winslow. Her hair was iron gray and styled like steel wire, not a strand out of place. Her eyes locked onto me with surgical precision, scanning me like I was a smudge on her perfect world. And in her hand, gripped so tightly her knuckles blanched white, was a clipboard. Not just any clipboard. Her weapon, she held it like a sword, a blade forged from neighborhood gossip and the brittle power of petty authority. I could practically see the invisible crown of self-importance hovering above her head, glittering with HOA bylaws. "You're safe," she finally said, her voice slicing the air like a paper cut. She didn't point. She didn't need to. Her gaze slid past my shoulder, straight through me, and landed on the heavy silhouette just visible in the corner of my garage. My safe. The words dripped with disgust, like she was describing something obscene. "We've decided," she continued, "that it violates community aesthetics." The phrase hung in the air, sterile and poisonous, as if she had just condemned my entire existence with a smile. Her 2 cronies nodded in unison behind her, lips curling faintly, like vultures waiting for something to die so they could pick its bones clean. And in that moment, my heart slowed, not stopped, slowed. That cold, deliberate rhythm only surfaces when trouble is about to meet resistance. My mind sharpened, vision narrowing until everything else blurred except the 3 of them and the silent weight of my safe looming behind me like an iron sentinel. They thought they were delivering a verdict. They had no idea they were standing at the edge of a battlefield. They didn't just want me to move the safe. No, they wanted to take it. Mrs. Winslow's lips curled as she delivered the sentence, each word dripping like acid. "Remove it by tomorrow," she declared, her voice slicing the morning air like a cold blade. Or, "We'll have it hauled away," Time stuttered. The sound of distant sprinklers faded. Even the birds seemed to stop mid-chirp as the weight of her words crashed down like a falling vault door. Confiscate my safe. My ammo safe. This wasn't just some bulky hunk of steel tucked in a corner of my garage. It was a fortress forged from reinforced metal, sealed tighter than most bank vaults. Inside weren't toys or trinkets. It held the tools of a responsibility most people couldn't even spell out loud. I could feel the heat rising in my chest, slow and volcanic, as I stared at them. They stood there with smug smiles, completely oblivious to what they were threatening to tamper with, because that safe wasn't just heavy. It was layered security. Years of discipline, training, and government vetting compressed into steel walls. And these people, that armed with clipboards and HOA bylaws, thought they could just haul it away. I almost laughed, but I didn't. Instead, I smiled, slowly, carefully, like a predator sheathing its claws. Not because it's harmless, but because it knows the timing of the strike is everything. "You might want to rethink that," I said softly. My voice was calm, but underneath it there was something else. Something they weren't expecting. Something cold. Something that made Mrs. Winslow blink just once, as if an icy draft had slithered up her spine. Her 2 lieutenants shifted uncomfortably, glancing at each other like maybe, just maybe, this wasn't going according to their script. because what they didn't know was that this safe was not a hobby. It was not decoration. It was federally documented property. Every component inside it was catalogued, sealed, and tied to a clearance that reached beyond this neighborhood's perfectly trimmed hedges and deep into government security protocols. And that clearance had a name stamped on it: mine. I let the silence linger, heavy and dangerous, while the sun cast long shadows across the driveway like black warning lines. They thought they were delivering a threat. But standing there, faces twisted with arrogance, they didn't realize they were standing on a minefield, and every arrogant word they spoke was another click of the trigger. They wanted to play authority. I was about to show them what real authority looked like. By evening, the neighborhood buzzed like an angry, disturbed beehive, the kind where one wrong move can unleash chaos. It started as whispers. Faint, flickering rumors carried by the soft hum of sprinkler systems and the distant yaps of pampered dogs. But whispers have a way of mutating. By the time the sun dipped low and bled gold across the rooftops, those whispers had twisted into accusations with teeth. I could feel it as I stepped onto my porch. The air itself seemed charged, electric, watching me. A pair of kids on bikes skidded to a stop at the end of my driveway. They stared at my garage like it housed a dragon. One of them murmured something, and the other's eyes went wide before they both bolted off, tires shrieking like alarms. Across the street, a curtain slit twitched. A shadow moved behind it, and then another. It spread fast, faster than logic ever could. Suddenly, I was no longer the quiet, well-mannered guy who waved on trash day. I was the stockpiler. The threat. The whispered phrase floating between mailboxes was, endangering property values. They imagined that my safe held mountains of munitions, stacked like dynamite, humming with danger. They pictured me as some cold-eyed survivalist building a personal armory while they watered their roses. The irony almost made me laugh, because what they didn't know was that my safe wasn't illegal at all. It wasn't some black market arsenal or hidden contraband. It was certified, inspected, and registered. Every bolt, every compartment, every ounce of its existence had been documented. Not just by the state, by something much bigger, by Homeland Security. That safe wasn't just metal. It was part of a federal security framework, a silent node in a chain of protection that stretched far beyond this cul-de-sac. And here they were, panicking over property values, while I quietly carried a level of clearance that most of them couldn't even dream of touching. I watched the sunset glint off the safe's steel surface, its edges glowing like embers in the fading light. Let them whisper. They had no idea that the thing they feared was the very thing keeping them safe. The HOA called an emergency meeting on my lawn the next morning. Folding chairs, furious neighbors, and my safe parked like a silent tank between us. Mrs. Winslow waved papers like victory flags. "This neighborhood has rules, sir," I let her finish. Then I pulled out my own folder, the one with a golden seal. "Actually," I said, "this safe is a Homeland Security approved asset. Tampering with it is a federal offense." The air cracked. Everyone froze. Mrs. Winslow's voice faltered for the first time in history. I explained, calmly, that my work with Homeland Security required the secure storage of controlled equipment, and that I had federal immunity for its possession. The HOA's authority, I reminded them, ended at the property line. One man muttered, "Oh, we're screwed." If this showdown gave you chills, don't forget to like, comment, and share this video, and make sure you subscribe to this channel to get more thrilling stories just like this one.